Hey everyone, Privya here, third year Canadian med student, and today I have a fun video for you all. But first, in my last video I promised that this would be the last time you would see me with this on my head, so first things first. That's better. Okay, let's get into this video. Today we're going to be talking about the differences between a 3-year and a 4-year med school program with a special guest, so stay tuned. In order to reduce some bias, I've asked GIANLUCA over at NXTgenMD to give me some of his experiences about a 3-year med program. I just spent the last week camping, biking, hiking, that sort of thing, and everything is a mess right now, and since I'm starting clerkship again tomorrow, I have to clean up. So I'm going to start off with washing the bikes over there. In the meantime, I'm going to throw it over to GIANLUCA to introduce himself and get started on if he had any worries about starting a 3-year med program.
Hi there, how's it going? My name's GIANLUCA and I'm a first-year Canadian medical school student, or technically I just finished up my first year right here at McMaster University in Ontario. Now, McMaster University is actually a 3-year medical school program, and by the way, I actually love the 3-year program for me personally. And truthfully, I didn't have any worries when I started the 3-year program. I remember when I was first applying, I was actually looking more favorably towards the 3-year program because the way that I figured it, I had already been in school in undergrad for 5 years at the time, and I thought that because I had stayed for a 5th year, I might as well make up for some lost time with a 3-year program. So for me, I actually looked forward towards a 3-year program in terms of saving an entire year of my life being in school. I think the 3-year program in that regard of saving an additional year when it comes to not only of the time that you spend studying, but also the amount of money that you have to pay for medical school. Because if you're saving an entire year of not being in school, that's another $25,000 that you're going to be saving. And it might be something that people that might have already done a master's or a PhD or taken a second undergrad or a 5th year might want to look into when it comes to the 4-year program versus the 3-year program.
So for me, I also didn't have any worries about starting a 4-year med program, albeit a 4-year med program is the status quo in terms of programs across Canada. I do agree that you will save tuition if you do a 3-year program because you're not doing that extra year, so you are saving that amount. So if you've maxed out on your government student loans and you don't want to go into your LOC or accrue extra interest on your LOC, things like that, then maybe a 3-year med program is the best fit for you. I had almost reached my 6th year of post-secondary education before I got into med, so GIANLUCA's comments do really resonate with me. One addition I would say though is that don't let the extra year or the saved year be the tipping point on your decision of whether or not you want to go into a 3-year or a 4-year med program. At the end of the day, when you're 47 years old and you've been practicing for years and years, that extra year, whether you save it or spend an extra year in school, is not going to make any difference in the future. Right now, it does seem like a lot of time, one extra year in your 20s or 30s, but it's not really going to make a big difference in the end. So I would say don't make your decision on saving or having to do an extra year of school. On to the next one. I cannot imagine having to be in school for 3 years straight without very many breaks. I love my summers off in a 4-year program, and it seems like, as GIANLUCA alludes to, that it is one of the most difficult parts in his 3-year program. Let's flip it over back at him and see what he thinks.
I started the program last August. I believe the date was actually August 12th. And we go for pretty much 3 years straight, about 2.5, 2 3/4, with very minimal breaks. We'll have a few 1-week breaks every now and then. We also had a 2-week Christmas break. And right now in the summertime, we're actually supposed to be away on our clinical electives, but obviously that's not the case right now. I would say that the most difficult part is seeing some of your friends from the other schools get some time off right now after they finish their final exams. And meanwhile, you're still studying and we're still getting ready for other things. We have an OSCE coming up in a few weeks. So really just trying to find that motivation to stay productive through the summer months and working when your friends have some time off. It's probably the most difficult part that I've experienced so far. But really, I'm just looking for something to say to this. I'm kind of grasping at straws here. I realize that when I am working as a doctor eventually, I'm not going to be able to take 4 months off in the summertime. So really, being here and studying studying through the summer really isn't that much different to when you are actually working full-time. My own way of thinking about it is that at this point, medical school is kind of like my job. I have a lot of friends that right out of undergrad went into the workforce, and they definitely don't have a summer break right now. So I mean, really, it's not as bad as some people make it seem. You just have to go ahead and implement some study strategies and some ways to keep the stress down and stay productive year-round.
I have to say, Gianluca really spat some truth there. He's completely right. We're so lucky to have breaks as med students. As many of our peers who went into the workforce right away know, they don't often get breaks. And with a job with good benefits, they usually only have about 4 weeks in an entire year of vacation time, and that's a good job. And to be honest, it's really only the summer after first year in a 4-year program where you have 4 months off. After that, like what I'm at right now, it's on average about 4 weeks that you get off. So I have to say I do agree with Gianluca on this one. At the end of the day, it's about your priorities, and you should be treating med school as a job, and it doesn't matter whether you're in a 3-year or 4-year med school program, you should be treating school as your main job during this time. Okay, let's get to the next one. My favorite part about a 4-year program is that, well, basically just that. You have 4 years in med school, which means you have a long time to decide what you want to go into after med school. For us, we're not rushed at all in terms of what we want to do for residency. In fact, we have about 3.5 years from the time you get into medicine before you submit your residency application. That means you've seen basically every single elective before you're actually applying. And even better, at programs such as UBC, we have a lot of pre-carms electives, which means that before you even choose your electives for 4th year, you've seen most of what you're going to in your 3rd year clerkship. That means you rotated through all of your cores, so pediatrics, women's health, surgery, emergency, family med, all of those before you even start choosing your 4th year electives. And that's a huge benefit to have. So this helps in 2 ways in my opinion. One is that you really get to know what you do and don't like about certain specialties, which gives you a lot of exposure and a lot of information in terms of your decision making when it comes to residency. But even more important in my opinion is that you end up looking good on your 4th year rotations. For example, if you're in a 3rd year program, you may only have, let's say 12 weeks, or I just threw out a random number, before you're doing your actual 4th year electives. So you only have a short period of time to get to have that clinical experience before you're doing your rotations, where you're going to be asking for reference letters, you're doing what some people call a live working interview. So for us at UBC, we not only have our 4 big blocks of 12 weeks before we start our electives, but we also have 20 weeks of pre-carms electives, which means that it's just more and more clinical practice, and it gives you more and more experience before you're on your elective. Okay, I'm gonna keep cleaning my car. I'm gonna throw it back to Gianluca to see what he says about the shortened timeline of a 3-year med program. All right, back at you.
I mean, when you have a 3-year program versus a 4-year program, you physically have 1 less year to decide what you want to do at the end of the day. But personally, I think that sometimes having too much time could create this illusion of you having more time than you actually have. And in that sense, it might actually be better to focus on what you do with the limited time that you have versus the actual amount of time that you have. I know that so far, in my first year, I was able to shadow respirology, cardiology, family medicine, emergency medicine, general surgery. Pretty much anything that I wanted to pursue, I've done it so far, and I've been really happy with the opportunities that I've been given.
Again, he is so right. There are so many people who, after 3 years of the program so far, which is where I am in medical school, they still don't know what they want to go into after med school for their residency. This is after pre-clerkship, after all of their clerkship rotations, and they still don't know. So what does that tell you? I have to agree with Gianluca on this one. Time is really just an illusion. I really believe that knowing yourself is the key ingredient to determine what you want to go into in the future, not how long your medical program is.
I think that not just with 3-year programs, but the best part about medical school in general is actually being in hospitals, being in clinics, working with patients, working with the doctors and residents is always going to be my favorite part compared to the actual sit down and study the material, which is also super important, but trust me, it's a lot more fun once you actually get to be in the hospital. hospital. So a lot of the 3-year programs really have an emphasis on trying to get their students involved in clinical activities as soon as possible. And also we start our clerkship a lot sooner than we would if we were in a 4-year program. So I know for us, we would have been starting clerkship now in November. I'm not really too sure how that's been impacted with everything that's been going on lately, but normally you would be getting into clerkship a lot sooner with a 3-year program.
I would say the flip side to that is the worst part about a 4-year med program. I hated pre-clerkship, which is the didactic teaching that happens in 1st and 2nd year in a 4-year program. You sit in lectures, people are essentially teaching you, and then you listen, not a lot of clinical experiences. So for example, if you know what you want to go into, and even if you don't know what you want to go into, the most important part of med school, in my opinion, is the clinical learning that happens in 3rd and 4th year. Even in 1st year, we did have family practice experiences where we would have those clinical opportunities, but it's just so hard to learn things from that experience when you don't have the base there. And yes, 1st and 2nd year is to give you that foundational base, but it was really hard for me, at least, maybe not for other people, to take that learning and apply it when I didn't really know what that learning was. And what do I mean by that? It was hard for me to sit in a lecture and really understand the differences, for example, between rate and rhythm control for AFib. Now when I'm in a clinical setting, I know exactly what the difference is between rate and rhythm control, but it was just so hard for me to wrap my head around that in 1st and 2nd year. I felt like I was just memorizing things and I didn't quite understand the significance of it or when an applicable situation was to use those. So if I had 4 years of pre-clerkship, for instance, 4 years of just med school lectures, I don't think it would be effective for me and the type of learning that I need. So if you find that you're someone like that, someone who learns how I do in hands-on experiences, not very well in lectures, then maybe a 4-year program isn't the best option for you. And that's not for everyone. There's a lot of people in my class who did learn a lot from those lectures. So starting your clinical experiences faster, which happens in a 3-year program, I do see that benefit there. But there is one caveat to that, and I would say that it's a big caveat, being the situation that we're in right now with COVID. A lot of clinical experiences or clinical teaching has been cut down because of the risks that come along with being a med student in the hospital. For example, if I'm on anesthesia, I'm probably not going to be intubating someone as I would have before COVID. In the same way, our experiences with dealing with respiratory patients or helping with CPR, those have also been cut down significantly because of the risk to us. Is this going to be the new normal? Maybe, it might be. But if I was starting med school right now, I would want my clinical experience to be as far back in the future, as far away from this COVID situation that we're dealing with, just to give med schools and faculty enough time to wrap their heads around how to implement teaching in this sort of scenario. That's just one part, and this is only my personal experience right now. Who knows? Maybe this is just what life in med school is going to be like in the future. In that case, it doesn't really matter how far your clinical experience is to this point right now. Lastly, extracurriculars and how to prevent burnout. This is a big worry for me in med school in general, and I can't imagine worrying about that when the timeline is compressed even more into 3 years. GIANLUCA doesn't seem too worried about this though, so let's hear what he has to say about that.
Personally, I believe that everyone needs to go and try their best to find a good work-life balance. And what that means for you is going to be different than what it means for me or what it's going to mean for someone else. But what I like to do is fill all the time that I have available after I'm done studying with things that I actually like to do. I make a schedule in the morning when I wake up, and I always make sure that I keep going to the gym or staying active in there pretty much every day now, about 5 days a week. I also like to do things like I play the piano, spend some time with my family, I hang out with my girlfriend when I can. Just making sure that you stay focused on what you need to get done, but rewarding yourself after you get those things done, I think is super important and keeps you looking forward to the next day. I think that the most important part when it comes to being in medical school in general is really setting your priorities. What do you need to get done? And I mean, first you need to have your goal. If you want to do a competitive specialty, for example, you're going to need the research, you're going to need the shadowing, you're going to need the extracurriculars, and etc. And once you've identified that goal, it's all about setting a schedule. What do you need to get done in a day, and then what you need to get done the next day. From what I've seen so far, the 3-year programs really do want to set their students up for success, and they know that especially for these competitive specialties, the students need to get these things done. Oftentimes our schedules are laid out with blocks open specifically for people to fill with research and extracurriculars, so the time is definitely still there.
Okay, as you saw, Gianluca is still making time for everything that he needs to and wants to in his shortened program of 3 years. At the end of the day, he's completely right. It's all about how you prioritize your time and how you make time for what's important to you. I would still argue it's much easier in a 4-year program just because inherently you do have more time. What do you do if you're in this situation? You're trying to choose between a 3-year and a 4-year program. Well, as you've seen, there's a lot of pros and cons to both programs. And to be honest, I was on the side where I was 100% set on a 4-year program no matter what. So I'm actually happy that Gianluca agreed to come on with me in this video and explain some of his thoughts, because it did help to reduce my own bias in this video, and it actually changed my thoughts as well. And there's a lot of things that I thought were huge downsides to a 3-year program, but after hearing what he had to say, it's actually not a big downside at all. So in the end, what do you choose? I honestly think that no matter what program you choose, the most important thing is whatever is going to make you happy in the program. Med school is a hard time, I'm not going to lie, and burnout is a real thing. It's a difficult program to get through, and getting through clinical rotations is equally as hard. So when it comes down to choosing what you want to do, I would say prioritize location. And when I say location, I mean, where is your support system? Will you be in a province or a state or even country that you know you won't thrive in? Are you close to home where you can fly back and see your family or friends? Again, this ties in with support system and where you are. So really, I do believe that what matters most is not the length of year of the program. I would say it's getting to know who you are and what is important to you. Getting to know yourself, knowing what your limits are, knowing what type of lifestyle you want to live, knowing how important having your family close by or friends close by is. There's so many aspects that people don't take into account when choosing which med program to go into. And I do get it, because getting into medical school is a huge achievement. And a lot of people on this journey of trying to get in are ready to drop everything with that one acceptance, or if you're lucky, more than one acceptance. But I really do believe that if that's the case, if that does happen to you, it can lead to you being unhappy in the future. So if you are fortunate enough to have more than one option and you're choosing between a 3 and 4-year program, I do not doubt that you're going to thrive in either one of those programs. As you've seen in this video, there's pros and cons to each one. And I really do believe that if you were resilient enough to get through the application process after applying, then you will do completely fine in whichever program you choose. Okay, well, that's the end of this video. I hope you did find something useful in here, whether it was learning about different programs or, if anything, you got to meet Gianluca. So huge thanks to you, Gianluca, for joining me in this video. For all of you who don't know him or who haven't seen his channel, I will link it below. Go follow him at NXTgenMD. That's everything for now. As always, I will see you in the next one.